Hello, everyone. I'm Shardul, and I'm excited to be chosen as part of Project Aqua to contribute to open source this summer. And I've I've collectively chosen, along with my partner, to contribute to Magenta, which is a research project that explores the role of machine learning within the area of music and art. And so they specialize in generative models. And so today what I'll be doing is I'll be demoing some of our explorative work on Music VAE, which is a model based on a variational autoencoder that is used to essentially blend scores and music together. Um, so you can see I'm working in this Google Colab right now, and I was able to actually use like the environment setup and quite a bit of the starter code provided already from the developers of Magenta to kind of get this demo underway. My main aim and goal is to show you the things that I've been creating using this um, model, Music VAE, as well as to maybe explain a little bit in depth as to what's happening here. Start off with a very simple example of blending in using the Music VAE. Starting off with two very simple scores, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and Hot Cross Buns. Later I'll show you a blend of two drum scores that were sampled from the 2-bar drum models that's provided by the Magenta team. But here, why don't I play the note sequence generated by Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Right, yeah. So this was the note sequence. Here, as you can see, like each note was actually written out to be able to be played here. A similar kind of thing is done for here for Hot Cross Buns. And now what we'll show is the interpolation between these two scores. So if I can just play that for you. So actually, before I play that, let's talk a little bit about how this is generated. So there's 8 sequences that are generated. And the Music VAE model takes the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star as the first score, Hot Cross Buns as the second score, and it generates 8 sequences, from start to finish. And this returns a list of those 8 sequences. It then concatenates all of those into one long sequence, and if we play that, this is what this sounds like. That was a simple demo. Now let's move on to something more interesting. I'm going to sample 2 drum beats from the trained drum models and generate an interpolation between those 2 sequences. So we can load those pre-trained models here, and we can generate 4 samples from the prior of the models that we've chosen. Here I've chosen the high KL divergence model. What this essentially the high KL essentially means that there is a greater variedness in between in the like a higher dimensional latent space that allows this model to explore more sounds essentially. And so this generates, as I said, 4 samples, and we're able to generate interpolations between 2 of those samples. And so the chosen beats are this, and this is the second beat. Now let's do the more kind of exciting demo of taking the start sequence reconstruction of the drum beat as well as the end and interpolating between the 2. Right. So that was the demo of the Music VAE model released by Magenta. But I'd like to give a brief explanation of what's going on here. So generally, autoencoders are really good for building a latent space of a particular data set. And they do this by learning to compress each example into essentially a vector of numbers. And they then reproduce that same example from that vector of numbers. So if you're given like a five-dimensional vector that carries all the information about the input, the encoder first reduces that to a smaller latent space, i.e. a lower dimension, and then it tries to create again the same five-dimensional vector that you were given originally. And like how it optimizes this, or how the autoencoder trains, is by reducing the difference between the input vector, or let's say like the input matrix, in comparison to the output. So the difference essentially in the starting vector and the resultant vector is our loss function, or is our loss, and we can apply kind of any function to determine like a mean squared loss or some other functions. And this is the thing that the model is trained to minimize. The fewer dimensions in the latent space actually generally capture more important information, and this kind of limits the model's ability for randomness, or as you hear in a lot of machine learning talks, stochasticity. The variational autoencoder uses a different loss. So instead of limiting the dimensions of the vectors like just in a standard autoencoder, the variational autoencoder actually produces the latent codes with a predefined structure. Then it's able to construct new codes with the very same structure, allowing new music to have a more kind of realistic feel. So it's actually not reducing it to a significantly lower subspace. It's using a kind of, let's say, similar structure, maybe like different, maybe similar coefficients, to be able to create music that would sound similar to the input that we gave it. So that's how you're able to kind of see how one score blends into another. There's also the matter of long-term memory within this model, which we saw actually is a great feature, because over the 52 seconds of the interpolation, there's a realistic, very realistic transition, and so you can see that the model does remember what the previous sequence was, and it builds on top of that instead of starting from random. This is done because each new sequence essentially uses a structure that's conditioned on the last. And this provides a realistic continuation to the melody. There's definitely a lot more to this model than I'm able to explain in the short demo, but if you're interested to learn about it, I'll link a Medium article as well as reading the paper that introduces Music VAE. Otherwise, I'd like you to stay safe, and goodbye for now.